everyone, and welcome to our season finale spoiler review for the first season of The Bad Batch. My God, we have made it here. It seems like we started reviewing this show last week, and now already we are done with the entire season. So much to talk about here on the show. We're going to break this whole thing down, both episodes, episode 15 and episode 16, with you all. We're going to take your Streamlabs, Super Chats, say hi to you all. Maybe even if there's time, depending on the situation, maybe we'll surprise a couple of you, bring in live to ask your questions of us. We shall see. But let's get into it first by introducing ourselves here on the Geek Buddies. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the channel. Michael?
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
Shannon?
This is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you may have seen me on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Silicon Valley, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
And we are the
Geek
Buddies!
And we are joined. We've been very blessed to be joined every week. We do these Bad Batch reviews with our special guest, who's our ride or die in the world of Star Wars, the great Laura Kelly. How are you?
I am fabulous, John. Thank you for having me one last time for one last Bad Batch review this year. Until next year.
Hopefully until next year. Look at the scarf. What's the scarf? Tell people about the scarf. I'm sure they're going to ask questions in the chat. What is that?
So the funny thing was I tried to wear it like a bandana, like Hunter, because it's got a skull on it. But the thing is, when you have bangs and you try to wear a scarf like that, you just kind of look like you have a mullet. So it was a no-go. So I was like, let's just go around the neck. So it's no mullet in sight. You know, job well done.
Absolutely. Speaking of a job well done, these last two episodes were so much fun to watch and enjoy. I watched them again before we got ready to do our review here. Episode 15, Return to Camino. Episode 16, Camino Lost. And this is the first of maybe two more or maybe just one more warnings that these are spoiler reviews. This is a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen the last two episodes, we're going to spoil the whole thing, and we're live. So the Streamlabs, the Super Chats are open, ladies and gentlemen. Start sending in your questions to us in the Super Chat or Streamlabs. We first Streamlabs because Super Chat, YouTube is now taking 50% of those Super Chats. So that goes 50% in YouTube's pocket before it gets to us. But Streamlabs fully goes to us. So please send in that. The address is there, pinned in the chat. It is also in the description of this video and on the screen. So let's go around the horn. Overall, Mike Vogel, we always start with you. What did you think about these last two episodes of The Bad Batch?
I thought they were a lot of fun, really satisfying. Didn't end as tragically as I think we feared. Kind of tragic in some different ways, I think, but not tragic in the way that Laura particularly was dreading. So I think that was good. I will say, and this sort of is just an interesting thing, I've loved The Bad Batch the whole way through. I think it is a very paced out story. I think that with Star Wars, we love the big events, we love the earth-shattering reveals, we love the holy shit moments, and this finale had some epic action moments. But I think that overall, The Bad Batch, the story that we're all interested in, the questions we have about Omega, about Rex, about what's going on, about why some of the clones seem like they are defecting the Order 66 orders, didn't really get answered, and they're clearly saving that for next season. And I love the ride, I love the animation, I love the characters, I love the universe, so I'm on board, but I do feel like I wish it was maybe a little bit faster, faster.
I'm going to swing back to Lauren just a second, but Mike, are you saying that this could have been told in less episodes? Is that what you feel like? Or do you feel that the pacing of the show overall was a bit too slow for your own taste, and they still could have done it 16 episodes if they had more pace to it?
I think you could have packed more story into these 16 episodes than they did. I think that you could have maybe streamlined some of the stories, maybe taken some of the kind of standalone adventures and maybe tightened them up a bit just to get some more in there. But that is a critique of this season for me. But overall, it's a critique of a season that I very much enjoyed, that I've had a blast watching, just as I've said every week, and I'll say it again this week, watching their mastery of animation and just the sheer beauty of this show takes my breath away. Watching Camino go down was no different, like amazing moments. And I will say, kind of like arguing against my point, as much as we didn't get huge reveals, the character story and the emotional story between Omega and the Bad Batch and the time that they took particularly in the second episode, to really have some of these conversations and these looks and these moments, particularly between Crosshair, Hunter, everybody, were really, really emotionally affecting to me. So would I have liked more big story? Yes. Was I very satisfied with the emotional story I got? Also yes.
Yeah, and we will definitely talk about the whole season as a whole at the end of this episode and where we place it in our, lexicon of Star Wars animated seasons of shows. Laura Kelly, your overall feeling about these last 2 episodes, what did you think?
I think it was a super strong start. Episode 15 was Return to Camino, and I was really, really excited when we finished that episode because I was just really eager to get to that season finale. Ultimately, the first time I watched episode 16, Camino Lost, I was left a little bit underwhelmed. And I think maybe part of that might have been the same sort of thing that Michael's going with, which is that I had kind of hoped for something bigger to happen in the story and nothing. When I think about episode 16, besides the character development that we got, and what we got was amazing.
Yeah.
We weren't in a particularly different spot than we were in episode 1. There's just not a time. We're just leaving Camino. It's we really just didn't make it that far overall. So I think that was a little bit of my frustration with episode 16. However, my second and third watch of that episode was considerably more enjoyable. I got a lot more out of it, particularly some of the stuff with AZ. I really appreciated a lot more my second time around, so I'm excited to dive into that. But yeah, for the most part, I think maybe a lot of people felt like this episode, the finale just didn't go out with the boom that I thought that it would.
Excellent point. Do you feel like because we know that they've got the cloning technology because of Rise of Skywalker, that wasn't as much of a oomph moment? It's more like, okay, this connects up and this might have something to do with Mandalorian. And seeing Kamino burn wasn't enough of an important city in your mind to have that big of an effect for you?
I mean, I hate to write it off as unimportant because I don't think that's really the case at all. And I know, the big prequel fans of Star Wars, that was really devastating to watch.
Sure,
I know that for sure. And I totally acknowledge that. The prequel era has never been my number one go-to absolute favorite era of Star Wars. So I maybe don't have as much of a connection to Camino that other fans would.
Yeah.
I do think that was very emotionally devastating to watch, and the score had a lot to do with that. But for me, I don't know what I just kind of expected something bigger to connect somewhere down the road. Obviously, we're going to get more seasons of the show. Obviously, there's going to be making connections later on. Just with this first season, I had kind of hoped it would just end, I don't know, on a bigger cliffhanger or something. At this point, I'm not boy, I need season 2 right now. What are we going to do? I'm just kind of yeah, I guess we're all just waiting. That's fine. That's cool.
Okay, Shannon, do you share? I totally hear you, Laura. Do you share Laura and Michael's point of view of this? Were you both? Did you also feel a little bit underwhelmed? Or did you just really satisfy you overall?
I don't want to say underwhelmed, but what it felt like to me was those last 2 episodes were one big episode, and I think what I wanted more, I wanted a continuation, them escaping. Them escaping from Camino, I wanted that would have been the penultimate episode, followed by us setting the board for the next season. The way it did, the last scene of the last episode, it set the board sort of. I feel like the Bad Batch is so far removed from that it's Laura kind of put it perfectly, just sort of I think I wanted more of that cliffhanger of oh my God, how long do we have to wait? And episode 15, I loved. But I also think a lot of times, because these guys were introduced in the last season of Clone Wars, I think we all went into this season wanting some of those big Clone Wars, big story, big emotional wallop moments. And this is its own story. So it's gonna take some time to get there. So I understand why they did what they did. I would have liked some bigger things answered, some bigger pieces set on the board, but ultimately satisfied. But I totally understand it's good.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, and maybe not because maybe I'm not as crazy steeped into the Star Wars lore as the other 3 of you, but I had a great time. I really enjoyed this thing. This felt like a 70s disaster movie, and I had a really great time watching. I mean, there were shades of Poseidon Adventure in this thing. There were shades of Beyond the Planet, whatever it is. There was so much going on here.
Shades of Jaws 3D.
No, there were not. Well, yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Without
oh yeah.
Simon McCorkindale. That was a shame. But yeah, there was some. But I kind of really enjoyed it, and maybe because I watched them back to back, I did not watch episode 15 when it came out. I waited until the finale dropped, then watched them together. It felt to me like more of a cohesive thing. Then rewatched it again earlier today and just had a great time with it. But I absolutely take your points. I get you guys were hoping or expecting for something bigger. I think this felt right at the end like it was when we started it. What people feared, a little bit of a kid's show. It had a bit of a kid's ending. Everyone can be redeemed. Everyone is worth saving. And look, we're brothers and all this stuff. And, you're still my brother. So, so it felt a little more of a safer ending than a more a darker ending, which it could have had, even though it's all happening as Camino was burning into the sea. So, yeah, Mike, what were you saying?
I would push back on that a little bit, and we'll talk about it more in detail.
On my opinion? Okay, go ahead. On my feelings? All right, go ahead.
We've known each other for 20 years. You should be used to this by now.
It's very true. Go ahead.
I don't think the ending was kiddie. In fact, I would go the opposite direction. I think that... Okay. And what I mean by this is the balance of it, because I don't think I was underwhelmed, and I don't think I disliked it. I don't think I was overwhelmed by it either. I was just whelmed. Like, I was whelmed by this episode, and like that's like and that's not bad necessarily. But no. I don't think they went down a kiddie route with the ending. I think having this sort of nuanced character piece while Camino is burning in the background that really is breaking down what does it mean to be a soldier, which Hunter has one opinion on this, Crosshairs has another. And it really breaks down into this very kind of nuanced debate about soldiers post-war and all this stuff, which is not kid stuff. And I would argue, and I don't think that Crosshairs is redeemed either. So I don't think that is how they ended things either. So...
Oh, I think so. I think they left the door open for redeeming him. Absolutely. Having Omega, essentially the child clone, which even though she's older than all of them, sitting there saying, everyone, like, I'm your brother. They're my brother. They're still your brother. We're all family. At some point down the road, you sense they're going to have that redemption moment. That's all I'm saying is I sense that that's a possibility. And I don't think we were that nuanced, Mike, because every time they started to get into it, Tech would roll up in there going, we got to get out of here. We got to paddle. We got to jump through the thing. We got to do this. They could never have a real back and forth philosophical discussion for like 10 minutes about this situation of soldiering. So to me, I felt like they didn't quite go as deep as I would have liked to have seen.
When we get to those episode 2 scenes and we break down the conversations, I'll point out to you where you are maybe incorrect.
Sure. And point out the nuance. I want you to point out the nuance. All right, here we go. We're going to jump into this thing. The way we're going to go about it is, if you haven't watched the Geek Buddies before on these reviews, we basically break each episode down by section and then go around the horn talking about what we felt about those sections. So sit back, relax, and roll with us, and keep sending in your Streamlabs and Super Chats as we go along, and hit a like on this video as well. Well over 100 of you watching us right now, so please hit that like button as we go along. All right, episode 15, Return to Camino. We start with Crosshair's ship is barreling through space with Hunter in it. He's going to use Hunter's communications to lure the squad to them. We cut to the Marauder. Omega's upset and wants to get to Hunter. She is pacing back and forth. Boy, we got to get to Hunter. The rest of the batch is working on the ship to get it ready. They finally get it ready, and Hunter's device is activated. They know he's not on Dalal anymore. They cut to Hunter and Crosshair arriving on Camino with Vice Admiral Rampart waiting for them, but he wants to know where the rest of the squad is. Crosshair assures him that they will be coming. Rampart now talks to Hunter. He digs at him about Myloth as Hunter, and then as Hunter and Crosshair leave, a human stormtrooper tells Rampart that he doesn't trust Crosshair with his squad or any of the clones. Rampart assures the trooper that if Crosshair's plan doesn't work, then all the clones will be dead anyway, and asks the trooper to keep an eye out on Crosshair. We go back to the Marauder. Tech knows the comms thing is a trap, but he's not sure why. Omega knows which platform to land on in Camino where they won't be noticed. And Echo notices that there are only 3 destroyers in the area, Wrecker notices that, and Echo says, it's okay, don't worry about it. Omega guides them to the platform that comes out of the water only after you get closer. And when Tech worries after they land how they'll get to the city, Omega says they'll use the tube system and triggers this moving platform that goes underwater through a series of tubes. I'm going to stop there. Michael, heck of a beginning. And the animation here when they're landing on Camino, on the platform, the water. I was thinking of the raft in Avengers. I was thinking about so many things going on here in this opening. What did you think about it, man?
Yeah, I thought it was all really interesting. I love at the beginning just kind of like having Hunter and Crosshair together because, like I said earlier, like I really think that this Hunter Crosshair debate that happens throughout these episodes, especially in episode 2, really it's nice having those two a little bit separated from everybody. Admiral Rampart, I love that. Like it's all set up in these first couple of scenes, which is Admiral Rampart doesn't 100% Crosshair, 100% trust Crosshair. The kind of the new TK stormtroopers aren't 100% on the Crosshair train either. All really important information. But I think the coolest part about all this and all throughout this episode is how naturally and easily Omega just actually becomes leader of the team. Like that she's the one who's like, we got to go get Hunter. And everyone else, like, nobody questions it, including me. It took me till the second viewing to really like go, oh, this is what's happening here. Omega knows where to land. Yeah. Omega knows where the tubes are. Omega knows what to do. And Wrecker, Echo, Tech, like they all just very naturally fall into she's the new alpha. She's the leader. She's in charge. And Crosshair comments on it in episode 2, but I thought they did it in a way like they and this is what I mean, sort of, I think, in my opinion, of Kitty versus not Kitty. I think the Kitty version is Omega's like, I'm going to take charge. And they say, okay, we're following the kid. But like, they didn't actually have to ever state it. It just was a very natural role for her to fulfill. And it didn't seem weird that the kid was in charge. And I really, really appreciated that. I thought they did a good job. I think having them go back to Camino, where she is more familiar than they are, and she would naturally know this stuff, makes it an easy jump for us as the audience to get into. But I really liked it. And yes, I thought, really cool ideas. Like they, like the idea that there is this docking bay that like is underwater, Tech's not sure about it, the reveal of the whole thing, like it's all gorgeous, it's all beautiful. It's just a very elegant way to get them into the action.
Yeah. What did you think, Laura, about this opening here overall, and the idea of Omega now coming into prominence as the person with the information and the what do you call it, tactical information to get the Bad Batch on there without being seen?
I love that they had Omega sort of in charge in this part of the episode and kind of throughout this entire episode 15. And I said this at the beginning, even before the Bad Batch aired, before we knew who Omega was and before we ever saw her in a trailer or anything. My biggest concern with this show is, where are we going to get the female energy in the show? We've got a group of 5 dudes hanging out in a ship together, and that's what I thought this entire show was going to be. And so I'm really so grateful, number one, for the character of Omega just in general, because she's just awesome, and I love the development that we've gotten out of her this season. But the fact that we went from where we were with her in episode 1 to where we end up with her here, this promise that was made to her by Hunter saying, you're never going to have to come back to Camino, I promise you that. And she never even questioned it when they realized that they had to, follow his signal to the one spot he promised her she'd never have to go. That she, even though it was off screen, there was no hesitation in her mind whatsoever. And I love that she got put in charge in this scene and kind of got to lead the group ultimately to, their goal. The fact that she knew where this underground platform was, I thought was just, it was great. And we learned a lot more about her in these last few episodes of this season, which is something I was really grateful for too, because my entire thing this season was, what is Omega and when are we going to figure out what it is that's so special about her? And I think that maybe we haven't fully gotten there yet. We've gotten some information. Maybe we got everything we're going to get, but I kind of have a feeling that we're going to learn some more, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with experience, she's going to definitely assume the mantle of leadership in that. And it won't just be Crosshair questioning Hunter's leadership. It'll be Omega as well. Shannon, this whole opening, we talked about the platform. That's all cool stuff, but also the Rampart stuff, the TK Trooper stuff, the Crosshair stuff. Like, there was a lot of crossing and double crossing and triple crossing going on here. What did you think about this opening and when they landed on Camino?
I mean, I loved the literal sense of the quiet before the storm. There's just this kind of tension in the air as Crosshair comes in to see Hunter. You see sort of, the stormtrooper helmets, non-expressive. I mean, it was a really kind of just tight scene. And then as they get back to Camino, again, I'm always gonna stand Noshir because he's my buddy, but also just doing a fantastic job. And they're just clones. They are just things to him. And it's so apparent that they are just these things, which that's just the telltale sign of a great villain. And as they're going back, like the whole idea of a motion sensor platform coming up out of the water, Tech and the rest of the Bad Batch kind of having to take that leap of faith that Omega knows what she's talking about. And not only does it pay off, it pays off doubly, because they're like, well, great. Now, how do we get over here? Oh, we're going to go right here. I mean, she's really kind of cementing her place among the team, more than proving her worth. I mean, you get an idea of what the team is going to look like going into the future.
Yeah, which is why in the next episode, when Crosshair kind of goes back at her and goes, just because you're a clone doesn't mean you're one of them. He has no idea all the adventures and missions they've been on together through this entire season. She's essentially as much a part of that Bad Batch as he is. And he has an issue with that, I think, when we get to that spot a little bit later. All right, let's keep going here. Let's see where we go. We go back to the Marauder. Is that right? We go back to we go back to Mother. He knows the conflict. Sorry about that. Here we go. Tech says, sorry, I got lost here. Tech says this isn't anywhere on the schematics when they're looking at the tubes. And the Echo says the Kaminoans are all full of secrets as they're going down into this tube thing. Omega tells Echo this tube goes to Nalase's lab or quarters, and the tubes go all over the city. She's sad, and Echo inquires what's wrong, and Omega says that all that matters is saving Hunter. She's got her hair. By the way, I totally forgot her hair could actually get drenched in water or whatever. I thought it just was perfectly coiffed the whole time, but no, that part actually gets to move. We cut to Hunter walking with Crosshair. He notices, Hunter notices no regs or Kaminoans and believes the facility is being decommissioned. Hunter asks Crosshair why he's not concerned because they're going to phase out the clones next, and Crosshair ominously says, not the ones that matter. Right here, I wrote this down. I'm like, oh yeah, Crosshair is totally dead in the finale. This is what I was writing at the time. The troopers tell Crosshair that they detected the Marauder and want to alert the scouts. Crosshair says not to bother. They don't leave their own behind most of the time. Interesting. So Hunter tells Crosshair, you tried to kill us. We didn't have a choice. And Crosshair responds, and I did. Ooh, interesting moment here. Back to the tube system. They arrive at Nalase's lab. Omega says that this is where she was created. She reveals how they were created and how long they were in these tubes. Echo scans the system and sees that all the central files have been wiped. Just then AZ appears. He tells him that he is hiding because the Empire was deactivating droids and putting the Kaminoans on the transports, and clone troopers were reassigned and transferred off-world. Tech gets a ping from Hunter's comm. It's on the central cloning platform, and they run off to find him. All right, Laura Kelly, this is a heck of a thing that's going on. And first we find out that Omega has knowledge of their creation, which she has not revealed for the first 15 episodes of this series, and now is revealing it here. And also this back and forth between Hunter and Crosshair. Crosshair is legitimately hurt, I think, for lack of a better term, that they left him behind. And this will be something he comes back to later on in the episode as well. What did you think about this section of the show?
Well, I gotta say, this tube system that's beneath the water is really, really cool. I just wrote, this is neat as hell in my notes. And I thought it was neat. And I love that they called it the tube. I was like, oh, it's like London. How neat. But yeah, the fact that is where Nalase's private research lab leads to, and Omega knew about that, and we were able to get down there from the platform was just great. When Omega, you mentioned, Omega's hair, and one thing that occurred to me at that point, while her hair was sort of soaked, is that when her hair is wet and it's kind of down like that, she looks a little bit like the Sabine Wren character model, just like kind of in her face shape.
Okay.
Which just like a younger Sabine Wren, which I thought was it was just kind of interesting, but I noticed it right away. But yeah, this conversation between Hunter and Crosshair was really, it was really sad. It didn't occur to me at any point to sympathize with Crosshair. We kind of, even though we know he has this, we think that he has this inhibitor chip at this point, and this is what's causing him to make these decisions, the fact that he was still, at this point, still able to acknowledge, like, you know what, they still left me behind. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, that you were shooting at them, but like, you could ask for forgiveness later. I don't know, but that was really sad. They don't leave their own behind most of the time. That was hurtful. And I'm sure that, Hunter was like, we really didn't have a choice. But at that point, you're right. I mean, how much of a choice did Crosshair have?
Right.
We learn later, that things may have changed and we don't know exactly when. Mm-hmm. with the status of his inhibitor chip, and I really would like to know too, because when he asked, "Does it matter?" and Hunter's like, "It does." It does, yes, in fact, matter. But sorry, I won't jump ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Shannon, I think these are two big reveals. One, that Crosshair is actually hurt, that Hunter left him behind. He's capable of that feeling. And two, that Omega was there and was there for the creation, told him. I mean, this is huge, essentially reaffirming that she is actually the oldest clone, the oldest of them, and was able to watch them being created, at least for a little while before they were sent in with the regs. What did you think about this?
Yeah, I think the moment that Echo says the Kaminoans keep a lot of secrets, and that's who Omega grew up around. So there are things that Omega has chosen not to share with her brothers for whatever reason. I mean, you can tell she's not thrilled about having to go back to that lab. But these are things that she could have shared. I mean, in some context, she could have shared, like, you know, I'm actually older. I'm older than all of you. Like, I was there when this happened, and for whatever reason, you know, she just didn't want to talk about it, or she didn't feel it was necessary at that moment. The thing that I loved with Crosshair and Hunter going through sort of these almost deserted halls of Camino is the Empire very deliberately got the rest of the clones off Camino. I mean, in my head, I'm like, okay, they see Camino as their home. If they see what is about to transpire, like, is there a chance? Is there a possibility they're going to revolt? Yeah. So the tactical move is like, let's get them off here. Because we want this to be a smooth, clean operation. And the moment that Crosshair, I didn't think that he was going to die at that point, but when he said, they're not going to get rid of the clones that matter, it just makes me think of, like, those World War II movies where certain Parisians would side with the Nazis. It's just kind of like, no. Like, if I get in good with them, I'm going to be okay. Like, it's very much sort of an act of self-preservation. Yeah. And the idea, I mean, Crosshair is just so misguided. So the idea that he is upset with them because they left with a series of blaster fire that, he was a part of, it's just kind of like, oh, get the hell out of here, man. You got no leg to stand on right now.
Wow. You're saying he's playing victim? It's a surprise. Yeah, interesting.
100%.
Yes. Mikey, please, your thoughts on this whole situation, what Shannon just brought up as well.
So yeah, a couple things. First, on the Omega of it all, I think we've talked about this from is Omega a Force-sensitive clone? Is Omega this? Is she like an Uber clone with all these powers? I think in the long run, the most valuable thing is that she was Nala Se's assistant. Like, they've set this world up where the Empire has taken Nala Se away. That's the big ending of part 2, that they have the cloning information. They have Nala Se. She has all the information. She's the scientist. Even Rampart said a couple episodes ago, politicians I don't need, scientists I need. And Omega's reveal here that she was there in Nala Se's lab. She watched what went into all this. Like, the information that she has, just the sheer knowledge, might be way more important in the long run than her having some crazy abilities. I think that the fact that she was there, the other thing that's interesting is I think when season 7 of Clone Wars came out, I think we all just assumed that these were like the defective clones. Like, each of these clones came out of the tube a little funky, and their funkiness kind of made them awesome and unique. And now, like, to see that they were designed this way, and that Omega was there for all of that, and probably still knows more about the why of it all, I think is really, really, really interesting. So that's all really cool on the Omega front. I don't think Crosshair's playing victim here. I think in Crosshair's mind, he is really hurt that they left. He also believes 1000% that a good soldier follows orders. That's not the inhibitor chip talking. This dude believes being a good soldier means you do what you're ordered to do. So that's when he says, did I have a choice? Like, he's like, we didn't have a choice. He's like, you think I did? In his mind, he didn't have a choice. Yeah. He had to do that. What he's mad about is that they are his brothers who he thought were good soldiers, and they didn't follow orders. In his worldview, they not only betrayed him by leaving him behind, but betrayed what he thought they believed in. And I think that's what makes Crosshair really, really interesting in all this.
It's a great point, Mike. Betrayed the ethos of what they supposedly were trained to do, which is to follow orders. And being in the military, this is always a battle. There are people in the military who believe no matter what they tell you to do, you will do it. And other people are like, well, I mean, I can question orders because we are always told Any order that seems out of place, you can question it. And we saw that also in Black Panther with Okoye, battling, right, decide like, oh, I'm loyal to the throne, but look who sits on the throne. I don't care. I'm loyal to the throne. So yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
That's a great point. In this situation, the Bad Batch is Nakia, and Crosshair is Okoye. Like that's what it. And I think what's really interesting when you think about it is we know, because we've been with the Bad Batch for the whole season, that despite Crosshair trying to kill them, they see him as their brother. They miss him, and they would take him back. What we see in these episodes is that despite Crosshair trying to kill them, he sees them as his brothers too, and really wants to have them come back. Just for him coming back means come back and be a soldier and join the Empire.
Right, which is not an optimal thing for the Bad Batch. All right, let's move on. Hunter and Crosshair are talking some more. Hunter tells him about what he's seen the Empire doing. Crosshair says Hunter doesn't see the bigger picture. Hunter tells Crosshair he is being used, and it's that inhibitor chip. And I put in parentheses, wait, does he still have that damn thing in him? I don't think he has that inhibitor chip in him anymore. They get a signal that the Batch is coming on a Platform 5. We cut to the Batch running in with that Rogue One emergency signal going around. They run in and hide to avoid those troopers that are there, then head into a room 1 level below where Hunter is at, which is the training room. Tech says they'll use the lift rather than running straight in, thinking he can outsmart Crosshair. Stupid Tech. Echo, Hunter, and Wrecker jump on the lift and tell Omega to stay behind. And when they signal to run back to the ship and contact Rex, they end up in the training room. And of course, Crosshair was waiting for them with his troopers. They disarm the Batch. Omega gets a signal. And rather than following orders, she wants to help. Hunter thinks Crosshair wants to kill them. Crosshair's bigger plan here says Hunter betrayed him for the Republic. Hunter counters that they're loyal to each other. Crosshair says you weren't loyal to me and drops a mad trip on him, saying that he is going to give them what they didn't give him, a chance. And Omega is caught down below there. Crosshair and Hunter debate over what is best for Omega. Crosshair tells them they can work together for the Empire, be a strong arm for them. He wants Hunter and the Batch to consider it. Hunter wants to know how they can just trust him. So Crosshair tells the other troopers to stand down, and when they refuse, he trick shots the shit out of them and takes them all out. Shannon, what the hell? How is Crosshair on the side with the Bad Batch now? Why is he giving them this chance when he was hunting them down? Was he just hunting them down to sit them down and go like, look, just listen to me. We can do this together. Was that the whole point of this?
I mean, that's what he would have us believe at this point. I mean, looking at the past episodes where they did cross paths, it didn't seem like that at the time. I mean, he seemed, especially after his head got torched, I mean, he seemed pretty vindictive in that ship. I didn't think he was coming down to slap him on the wrist. I love the Tech is just, he's so smart, but he lives in a world of rules and probability. And he's like, well, this is what a soldier would probably do. They would be focused on that front door, so we're going to go up in the lift. That's going to give us a little bit of an advantage. But because Crosshair is that sniper, I mean, I think about Avengers 1 when Hawkeye's saying, I like to see things from a distance. I mean, that's what Crosshair is used to doing. I mean, and it's also kind of his worldview. Like, he steps back and he sees things from a distance. He sees the big picture. And the moment that he tells those other troopers to drop their weapons, or not drop their weapons, but like take their weapons off the Bad Batch. Yeah. And you see Tech notice that little kind of like a deflector posted, and you see him kind of nudge Wrecker, I think. And that shot, that's just a beautiful, beautiful shot. And that was in Crosshair's own messed up way. That's his olive branch. Right. He's like, look, I just killed these guys, so you have an opportunity to come back. I mean, it's really, really interesting. Like, I hadn't considered the whole idea of like, that's why Crosshair is so upset with the Bad Batch, is the betrayal of what he considers his worldview, which Vogel pointed out, which is really making Crosshair a very interesting character.
Yeah, for sure. I saw a couple of reviews compare him to Vader. Essentially, Vader trying to convince Luke, trying to convince Padme that the Empire is the way. Come with me. We'll rule the galaxy. Come with me. We'll be number one on the Emperor's wish list. Like, let's go this together. Do you sense that from Crosshair here as he's dropping this knowledge, or his own point of view, rather, on Hunter, Mike? What do you think about this whole section of the show, too?
Oh yeah. I wrote down the whole, Star Wars. It all rhymes. Like, it all rhymes. That's and this scene was that. I love that we came back to the training room. Kind of we started there. I think we ended there. I thought that was really, really interesting. But like, and you were referencing some of the conversation, but yeah, Crosshair's basically like, look, if I wanted you dead, you would be dead. And it wouldn't be just, and not that it wouldn't be justified for me to kill you. You betrayed everything we stood for. And for what? The Republic. So again, he's very focused on you guys. We all had an ethos. We all had a thing. We were the best soldiers. This is what we did. And you guys went rogue. And he's really, really upset about that. And when Hunter says, and this is really where Hunter's kind of point of view on all this goes, we're loyal to each other, not some empire. Like Hunter's all about this is what we're loyal to. Crosshair does not believe that. Yeah. And further, like you said, he goes, you weren't loyal to me. You may have forgotten, but I haven't. That's why I'm going to give you this chance. And what's interesting is even in shooting the stormtroopers, he doesn't shoot them until they disobey orders.
Right.
So still, even though,
good point.
Crosshair's ethos is still good soldiers follow orders. He told those soldiers to lower their weapons, and he would have then, I'm assuming, gone and tried to make the deal. But they didn't. They said, we refuse, and he was like, cool, boom, you're dead. I'm still in my world. I'm in the clear here.
Yeah.
He's very, very consistent in what he did. And then and I also love the fact that he didn't try and take Omega and say, now I'm going to kill the girl, I'm going to use her as a threat. He wanted to just get Omega off there. And his point is, she doesn't belong with you. You're soldiers. She's better off without you. So everything very clear and black and white in his mind. But then the part where I wrote the rhyming thing is he literally says to Hunter, think of all we could do together. Right. And he might as well have been Vader, and Luke is just standing there with one stumpy arm screaming and crying, because it's literally the same thing. Like, it is in my worldview, this is what I think is right, and I want you with me. I want you next to me to do this together. So this is this is the bread and butter of Star Wars right here. Like, we have now taken the world of the Sith and the Jedi and the Skywalker saga, and we are telling a smaller version of that with these clones that find themselves in the exact same position, having to make the exact same type of choice that we've seen over and over and over in Star Wars.
Yeah. Laura, what do you think about this? Are you starting to see, were you starting to see at this point Crosshair's point of view, or were you just 100% like this guy's off his rocker, this guy's nuts, this whole situation here, and he wants something nefarious for Omega? Or do you think he's almost like the Batman to Hunter's Superman, right? But he's like, this is the way it should go. This is the way it should be. You're going to get that kid out of here, whatever. What do you think?
Well, the Batman-Superman comparison is not the one I'm going to go with.
Okay.
I was starting to sympathize with Crosshair 100%. Mm-hmm. And the reason I did was because that conversation of think of what we could do together, literally with the pause in that same place, is the exact same conversation in the exact same cadence that happens in Wicked the musical between Glinda and Elphaba. So
oh my God, Laura! When he said it, oh my God, when he said it, I was like, that sounds, what is that? You're right. Think of what we could do.
It's Wicked.
Together.
Oh my God. Well, there you go.
So yes, I was sympathizing. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you picked up on it too. I was just like, wait, I had the same thing, but I'm like, yeah, I still listen to the Wicked soundtrack sometimes, because sometimes I still live in 2006. But yeah, I was just like, wait a minute. Is Crosshair Elphaba? Like, am I supposed to be cheering for him in this whole thing? Like, now my mind's really, really blown. But I do love the comparison between Luke and Vader, because oddly enough, my brain did not go there at all. It just went to musical theater. So I really enjoyed
I get it. I get
it. Vocals on my side. I really enjoyed this conversation, the one that leading up to it, all about loyalty. I was thinking a little bit about, like, Jyn Erso and Saw Gerrera, how he left her behind, how he broke her, in her mind, he broke loyalty to her. Mm-hmm. So it is a story that we've sort of seen over and over again in Star Wars, but I love that it was in this context of, like, yes, Crosshair being so committed to good soldiers following orders and the loyalty to the Empire for some reason. I mean, all of these discussions that they're having, all this back and forth, I thought was just, it was really poignant conversations to be hearing. And I love that we got it here right at the end. We had, like, over and over again, kind of between these last two episodes, we kept hitting these points over and over, which I just thought, I thought it all worked. It could have, for some reason, it wasn't repetitive. It just worked for me.
Yeah, we went back. I mean, essentially, the last 2 episodes just circle back to the first 2 episodes. The questioning of the leadership of Hunter by Crosshair starts all back over again over the next few sections of this episode and the next episode. The idea of Omega not being really a part of them, shouldn't be a part of them. These are all the same beats that we were hitting in the beginning, but we've been through all these episodes, all these missions. So it's a different perspective we have on it now that she's been through all this stuff with the Bad Batch for sure. So I like it. It was a nice way to kind of wrap everything up to a degree. All right, we cut to Omega and AZ knocking the other trooper out. Crosshair is dropping a serious pitch for them to join the Empire, as Michael was alluding to. Tells Hunter to not become his enemy. Hunter turns and says, they never were. Just then, Omega sends in the droids, and this is an awesome sequence with all the Bad Batch fighting off Omega's droids as Hunter and Crosshair fight on the ground. But just when you think you know what's going to happen, Crosshair joins the Bad Batch, and they are fighting together. I put the music cue here is so perfect. The trooper that Rampart assigned to watch Crosshair shoots her way out and alerts Rampart what has happened. He tells her to get on a transport and let the clones fight it out. The Bad Batch keeps fighting, and that trooper takes off onto a transport that flies up to a destroyer. I don't know about anyone else, but I got serious Rise of Skywalker vibes here. Rampart is talking to Tarkin and assures him that they have the cloning technology and tells him to fire when ready. Fire what? Back to the training room, and the Bad Batch have dispatched all the droids. Crosshair gets up and rubs his head and turns. Hunter has his weapon trained on him, and Crosshair reveals that he had his inhibitor chip removed a long time ago. When they want to know how long, he doesn't tell them. Crosshair says, this is who I am. And as he moves his weapon, Hunter shoots him. He doesn't kill him. He shoots him, basically knocks him out. They have to leave. They take Crosshair with them, with Omega giving Hunter this is the right thing to do. As they run to the lift, the destroyers begin to destroy Camino. And I wrote here, the animation here is incredible as they blast Camino into dust in the water. And that's the end of the episode there. Mike, so much revealed here. We did hear the inhibitor chip is not that he took it out a while ago. Maybe that scene earlier on in the season when we saw him coming out of the tube, maybe they took out the inhibitor chip there. But what did you think about this exchange with him and Hunter? And then Hunter taking Crosshair and Omega approving this decision, and then the destroyers just decimating Camino.
Yeah, so a few things. One, totally agree. Like, love the moment where all the droids come up. You know, Omega's brought all the droids up. Maybe she overdid it a little bit. And at first, Hunter and Crosshair are fighting in the middle of, Hunter and Crosshair are fighting in the middle of all of this.
Yes.
But then Crosshair looks around and he just does this calculation and he's like, look, they got to get out of here. This is what makes the most sense. And they all start working together. And Omega's up there shooting. And it's like, for the first time, once you include Omega in this, all of them are working as a unit. And you just see that despite everything that they've been through and all the bad blood there, these people know how to work together. Like, they are truly, truly badass. And watching that is an amazing thing. Then you get this inhibitor chip reveal. And it's interesting because, again, from Crosshair's perspective, it doesn't matter. Like, it definitely matters to Hunter and Omega and everybody who assumed. But Crosshair's like, the inhibitor chip was built in so that we would follow an order. And with or without the chip, I'm going to follow an order. Yeah. So it literally doesn't matter to me, which is sort of chilling and horrible when you think about like Order 66 and everything. But like that's who this dude is. I mean, he's very, very tied to what he believes. I just love the stun. I want to get a T-shirt that says it's more fun to stun, because like the Bad Batch has used that stun ray more than anyone else in Star Wars, and I just love it. I love its cheesy 1970s weirdness, and that they've just continued to use it. And then I wrote when Omega when like Crosshair, you know, picks up Hunter picks up Crosshair and looks at Omega, and Omega nods, and I just wrote in all caps, she's the captain now. Like, Omega's the captain now. Like, every member of the Bad Batch is basically like, hey, is this good? And she's like, yep, that's right. And you're like, great, she's the boss. Yeah. Sometimes in animation, less is more. Watching those still shots of an empty Camino, of an empty center, all the clone rooms, just the shots of nothing happening, it's just quiet, it's silent. It was so haunting and it was so beautiful. And, this is a huge event. As we were talking before and we were all like, oh, nothing huge happened. Obviously, destroying Camino is a huge event. I think we sort of knew it was going to happen, so it didn't take us by surprise. But regardless, the emotional impact of seeing this place that was so important to the Clone Wars, the series, the Clone Wars, the event in Star Wars history, and just seeing and remembering, like I had this like moment of just remembering all the battles, all the episodes, everything we've seen in 7 seasons of Clone Wars that took place there, and just knowing that this was it, this was the end. And then the Empire just blasts it. And yeah, Johnny, you're right, it was beautiful. Oh my God. And I also just wrote, the Empire is so scary. Like this moment made me really set it in because they don't have some ideology. Like the Empire doesn't say, we're doing this because we truly believe this is what's better. Like their ideology is literally order and control. Yeah. And they will destroy anything, they will kill anyone, and they just don't care. Mm-hmm. Like it's so cold and it's so calculating. And I think that this destruction of Camino to me really represents like why the Empire has sustained for so long as being the bad guys that we love to hate.
Well, the scariest thing about any empire, be it a real empire or an empire in our media that we watch, movies and TV or whatever, is this idea that once they're done using you for what they need, there is no hesitation on wiping you out. Your people out, your city out, anything. That is ruthless and that is scary. And that sometimes is the reason why these empires can rule for so long, because they have that pattern. They all eventually fall, but they rule for so long because of how they can carry out those kinds of things. And yeah, when I say beautiful, I mean in its terror. It was certainly terror watching all of that go down with Camino. Laura, what was your feeling? I mean, this feels like they're literally destroying the Republic era and launching the Galactic Empire. Like this is the full transition, the destruction of Camino, almost symbolic in a way. What do you think about this ending, the reveal of the inhibitor chip and Omega as well?
Well, I think leading up to all of this destruction, and I think you commented on this, but the scene where in the training room where we finally get the Bad Batch and Omega all fighting together again, there's a music cue playing in that scene that's just gorgeous, and it just like made they're back together again, yay! And I was just so excited. But when we were watching all of these. We see the trooper report to Rampart that, Crosshair's lost control of this whole thing, like shit's going down, and Rampart's just like, pull the troops out, we're going to let all the clones die together. And I just wrote down in my notes, this is Protocol 13. This is what we saw. We saw it happen in Rebels, and we saw it happen in Rogue One, where the Empire pulls their troops out, and when the rats are leaving, you're supposed to follow. You're not supposed to stay put. That should have been your first clue. So that was really interesting that they brought that whole. I love that they bring these sequences back and use them again, but still so perfectly executed. Yeah. Vogel said, that the Empire is really scary. That's a really good point. They didn't even need a Death Star to do this, to take out Camino. I mean, they destroyed Jeddah City. They didn't even destroy the whole planet. They didn't even need that. They could have just brought in. These aren't even Star Destroyers. They're just cruisers. They could have just brought in some cruisers and just sprayed all this fire down onto this planet and onto the city, and it would have been gone. And the fact that they have that kind of firepower so long before the Death Star's existence is just really. It's really scary. This is going to be a scary period of time. This time between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. It must just be a scary time to be a little innocent planet where the Empire could just come in and take over. Totally agree. I kind of saw the stun coming. We've seen the Bad Batch do nothing but stun other clone troopers or people that they think are other clone troopers. They're never shooting them or actually, they're not actually using blaster fire. And I think that was. I love that they kept that consistency. It never faded for even a moment during this first season, and that was great. I'll be curious to see if that stays that way. Are they going to keep Batman's rule and continue following that same rule throughout the rest of it? Bad Batch and Omega running through the halls with AZ, and everything's quiet and still, and we just get a couple of these cuts to these very quiet still rooms. I mean, I I was a little bit triggered by this, and I'm sure you guys can attest to this, like having been in Los Angeles. When this city first shut down during the pandemic, just walking around and seeing how different and quiet and creepy everything felt, because there weren't even that many cars, if sometimes any cars, driving around. Like, I found this whole scene like very haunting, and just really like took me back to that same spot. And I was just like, oh God, that was one of the things that sort of moved me in this particular episode. Not so much the fall of Camino, but the feelings that it brought to, where it brought back to my real life in sort of related to that was sort of crazy. But yeah, this shot of them looking up at the Empire firing down on the city of Tapoka City. There's a scene at the end of Rebels Season 3, in the Season 3 finale. There's a really beautiful shot from behind Hera's head of her looking up. And it's a very sort of similar sequence that they follow at the end of Rebels. And it just is, the fact that we're taking some sequences and some inspiration from that show warms my Rebels loving heart too. So I'm glad we got we pulled that in just a little bit, and that gave me good feels. Even though it was destructive, it still gave me good feels.
Yeah, I mean, Laura's right about LA. If you got on the 405 at 4:00 in the afternoon during the pandemic, it was 1 a.m. There was nobody on the road. It was insane. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. What were you saying?
No, I didn't think about that. I didn't make that connection, but now that you say that, I think that's really accurate. I mean, early in the pandemic, I was walking my dog, Bosco, and there was one day I was walking down Melrose, and there was no cars to the point where I had just walked out to the middle of the street and sat down for a minute. I was like, I can do this. This is the zombie apocalypse. This is some shit.
Fair point.
Yeah.
And also, I want to reference something. Dena Geek, in one of their Easter eggs breakdowns, says the Imperial ships that opened fire on the labs are Venator-class Star Destroyers, a renaming of the Republic attack cruiser. Ironically, in the Republic era, these ships were heavily associated with the Jedi, since they were usually flagships for the Jedi generals. And these ships are smaller than the Imperial-class Star Destroyers that follow them, completing the transition to prequel and original eras to the iconic ships from A New Hope. So great catch there by, is it Megan Krause? I want to give her credit. Yeah, Megan Krause. Shannon, what did you think about this overall, this whole section here, what we're seeing with Omega, what we're seeing with the inhibitor chip reveal, the conversations back and forth, then the destruction there of the labs. And do you believe, it just occurred to me as Michael's talking, do you believe that he's telling the truth that the inhibitor chip was removed? Yeah, there's a scar in the back here, but is he this deep into the cult that they convinced him that they took it out when they didn't take it out? What do you think?
Well, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the Bad Batch didn't really find out about those chips until after the first episode, and Omega was the one who told them about it. So Crosshair wasn't there. So the only way he would get that knowledge is from the Empire. So, I mean, that one shot of him coming out of the tube, whichever episode that was earlier in the season, that's probably what it was them taking the chip out. I mean, you think about how many clones are out there in the galaxy, and more than one may have been defective. And they see this guy as someone that they can use, get that thing out of his head. We don't want to, this is someone who's going to be loyal to us no matter what.
Right.
The music cue of them all working together, that's a movie moment. That's the type of moment where, you're in Act 3 and you're just like, yes, you're in a crowded theater and everyone it's just that communal, just that group excitement. It's such a blast. The moment that we're seeing all those shots, I mean, I just wrote this is eerie. This is so eerie. You see all of these uninhabited spaces that at one point there was so much life. Literally they were creating life here, and it is about to be wiped off the planet. I mean, the whole idea that the Empire, if there's something that they no longer need that could conceivably help someone else, they will destroy it. They will get rid of it. It's like when Napoleon with Russia, they're literally poisoning the wells. They're burning. They go because they don't want anyone to have any sort of advantage. They don't want their enemies to have any opportunity to use something against them. I mean, it was just so awesome. And then watching them run down, and as the city's kind of collapsing, into the ocean. I mean, it was the end of episode 15 is just magnificent.
Yeah, agreed. I thought it was fantastic as well. And that music cue, I can't keep stressing it enough. I did the same thing, Shannon. I was like, oh, this is the moment. This is the adventure moment. Let's get this going. We'll see what happens as we go into the end of the episode. As we go into the beginning of the next episode, Camino lost. We're leaving them when they're being absolutely decimated and shot to death there by the destroyers. And as much as they say they care about Crosshair, they let him sink into the ocean with the rest of the Bad Batch. So will that affect things? We'll find out in just a second. I want to hit some of these Streamlabs before we jump into that. Thank you for sending them in. Please, Streamlabs address is pinned in the chat. It's there on the screen there and in the description of the video. So please send in your support as we go along. I am Jarrett Dean. It says, do you think when it's all said and done, everything will come full circle and piece together like Marvel? Do you think Kathy told Filoni, do whatever it takes to get me out of hot water? I don't know about that. You had me on the first part. You lost me on the second part. So, Mikey?
I don't think Kathleen thinks she's in hot water, but I am pretty sure that everybody behind the scenes, no matter what they say publicly, understand that Rise of Skywalker didn't deliver to a significant enough part of the Star Wars audience that they need to maybe figure out ways of retrofitting it. And I think they're also aware of the fact that George Lucas's prequel movies, although beloved by many, also have some gaps in them, and that Dave Filoni and the team came in with Clone Wars animated and really smoothed over a lot of stuff in there and kind of probably made stuff stronger because and to be fair to them, because they love those prequel movies. Like they took what they love about the prequel movies and made that era more palatable to all Star Wars fans. And I think in the same way, what we are seeing them doing is behind the scenes, Lucasfilm is like, hey, we agree. Everyone on Twitter who was like, this clone thing came out of nowhere, they're not wrong, points to them. But we can fix that, and so let's do it.
All right, fair. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Are we good? Okay. All right, we'll move on. Next one here is from Wayne Edwards. Thanks for doing this throughout the first season of The Bad Batch. Great work by you all. The 2-part season finale was amazing. This sounds odd, but it was so good. I forgot I was watching an animated show. The plot, the animation, the sound design, so good. Yeah. I think we're all in the same camp with you, Wayne, 100%. For the most part. Absolutely.
I mean, those raining scenes, those are photorealistic.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
1,000%. That water, for God's sake.
Yeah. I was going to say that was going to be my comment, is the scene I think that we're going to come to at the beginning of the next episode. I almost it was almost jarring where there's one scene where the water's falling from the ceiling. Omega's about to drown. You can see her she's right off camera and the camera pans to the water and then pans back to her. And I forgot that I was watching a cartoon. Yeah. To the point where I was just like, oh my God, there's cartoon characters in this show. Like it was crazy. Like you're totally right. How photoreal some of this looks. But it's still it's just beautiful. It's beautiful.
Agreed. Genghis Khan W says, do you think Crosshair may have had a change of heart not killing the Batch when he saw Hauser's loyalty and realized he missed his brothers in a twisted empire sort of way? Anyone?
I think Crosshair has consistently felt like I think he's been upset about this. I mean, remember back in those in that early episode 3 or whatever it was, where he was out there with those new stormtroopers, where he just laid waste to that rebel cell, and then they all came back to the barracks, and he was kind of sitting on his own. Like, I think if you go back and watch the episodes again, you'll see that Crosshair was sad and betrayed about this from the get-go.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's experiencing regret at all. I think it just sort of emboldens his anger at the rest of the Bad Batch.
Right. You guys violated the code. You left me behind. I respect that. Brian of Pink Milk Podcast says, John Rocha, I'm here for Laura's Cobb Vanth cosplay. Let's take a look. Yep, pretty close. I gotta say, it's pretty close. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty close. Pretty much nails it.
I didn't even make the connection. I love it so much. Good job, Brian. That's amazing.
I'm gonna say it's pretty close.
Yeah, love it. I'll take it.
All right, let's move on to the finale, episode 16 here of the Bad Batch season 1. Please keep sending in your Streamlabs super chats as we go along. We'll answer them at the end of our coverage here. All right, we start with those Rogue One emergency sounds. I'm not going to stop calling them that. I'm always going to call them that because that's my connection. But I know they're around since the first. I don't care. I like the Rogue One. I want that to be my ringtone. I'm not even joking.
All right, sure, it's a thing. It's got to be a thing.
It's got to be a thing. We start with this whirlwind emergency, as I said, as the destroyers are still decimating Camino. The Bad Batch is hit by some falling debris. I wrote here, this is awe-inducing, and it looked. Wayne Edwards pointed out here. I absolutely forgot, and Laura did, that this was an animated show during this sequence. It was incredible, just incredible. The Bad Batch slides down a falling platform. Hunter is separated from the rest. All the facilities have crashed into the sea. The destroyers head to rendezvous with the fleet. We cut to this wreckage there on Camino. AZ wakes up Omega. She sees Crosshair is under some steel debris. And this is when I noticed that the entire Bad Batch, other than Omega, AZ, and Crosshair, are in a separate room here. She reaches out to Hunter on the comms to let him know that their compartment is flooding with water. Tech can't override the system to open the doors, but Wrecker has a big knife and is overriding it himself. Omega and AZ work together to get Crosshair out from drowning, then try to get the door open. Just then the Bad Batch get it open. Omega, AZ, and Crosshair are caught as they come through. Crosshair questions Hunter, who tells him that the Empire fired upon Camino and they might be getting ready to battle, but then Tech tells them they need to get topside for this whole place collapses. That's what I'm saying. We don't get a longer discussion. Hunter gives Crosshair the choice to stay there and die or come with them. They are running up a platform when Omega stops to look at the cloning pods descending into the water. Really, Omega did a lot of work here in this finale, this last episode, of at least giving some kind of eulogy in her mind to Camino and to these pods. They push forward, but the facility is falling further into the water. Omega saves AZ, but as the structure hits the ocean floor, they fall onto this flat platform. Just as Tech is giving them the 411 about what's happening, a tear opens the facility and they take off following Tech. Crosshair lingers with Omega and they share a look before Omega takes off, followed by Crosshair. Laura, this is a hell of an opening, as you mentioned here, seeing the water, seeing the destruction, but also the debris and all of this. It was incredible how they were essentially bringing you into felt like a live action movie, but of course was animated. What do you think about this whole intro here?
We've heard, I've heard George Lucas talk a lot in interviews about how, he wanted to, with the prequels, go to different settings, and he wanted to expand the universe and have it be in different biomes, different climates. And I think one of the things that he was probably really excited to do was Camino and Attack of the Clones and get to see the rain and the oceans and the creatures that come with that. But the fact that they just took that and cranked it up to not even 11, they cranked it up to 100 in this episode, and what they accomplished in this, it's Emmy worthy at the very least, right? This was really, it was just gorgeous to watch. This opening scene where the loud explosion temporarily deafens everybody, I made a note of that and then just wrote, and it gets worse because the rest of that, it's quite literally downhill after this for our heroes. So let's see, they destroyed the city. There's a clone trooper that comes to Rampart and reports to him all of the people have been evacuated, the city is destroyed, all the facilities have collapsed into the sea, and he sounds sad about it. Yeah. And it's pretty clear that this is a clone trooper because we can hear the D. Bradley Baker accent underneath that the uniform. And I imagine it must still have been really sad to watch. They still have all of these clones that are on these cruiser/destroyers, and it's just, they all have to be watching it being like, oh my God, this is our home. Chip or no chip. It has to be devastating to watch, I think. Crosshair getting trapped under the platform, I thought was sort of, call back to Obi-Wan and Revenge of the Sith. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but that should have killed him, and it didn't, and I don't know why. But I love that, she doesn't, Omega just doesn't even question it. She has no hesitation whatsoever in, I have to save him, and risks her life, inability to breathe going under the water, trying to free him from whatever metal platform that he's stuck under. And he's not even grateful. He's not even grateful. And it makes me so mad. I'm like, you had me in the last episode, man. I was sympathizing with you. You didn't even say thank you until the very end of this episode. Damn it. But throughout this episode, and more so this one than episode 15, we get quite a few wide shots of what Camino looks like from the outside. And I'm so glad that they kept cutting to that, because it's just so pretty to see. It's everything's drowning and underwater, but also on fire at the same time. It doesn't matter. It's awesome. And it just looks great. And then we've got like, there's a music cue in here that again is just like so sad as the Bad Batch is running in this tunnel and it starts to become vertical. The Kiner brothers just completely outdid themselves in the finale. And it was just really, really beautiful to watch and to pay attention and really notice upon rewatches. So if there are other people out there who are like me and you were maybe a little bit underwhelmed by this episode the first time, go back and watch and pay attention to some of those details, like the music and those wide shots of what's happening on the exterior of Camino, because it really is like so beautiful what they were able to accomplish with the animation and with the music and with the way that they built up the emotion of this episode overall. Yeah,
Shannon, I mean, did you agree with a lot of what Laura's saying here about the look of this thing, how they built it all up? And also, it felt like they were using some Clone Wars music cues. Am I wrong on this? You and Mike are the score people. I don't know but it sounded like, it felt a little bit like they were having shades of those cues throughout this episode, and certainly here in this beginning. And, what do you agree with Laura? Like, is it frustrating with Crosshair? I mean, Tech tells us in a little bit that he's severe and unyielding, so you just have to understand that about Crosshair. What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, to start off, I mean, they gave Rampart the Vader shot. I mean, that shot from behind as the camera slowly pushes in. I mean, they are cementing his villain status. And then when you do have that clone trooper come up and you hear the reservation in his voice, and to juxtapose that with the absolute iciness of Rampart, it was just a beautiful thing to watch. The really cool thing, and like I didn't really think about it until just now as we were discussing this, but Omega not leaving Crosshair, not wanting anything to happen to him. Not only is he her brother, he is her little brother. Yeah, they are all her little brothers.
That's a great point.
They are.
She was there when they were babies. And so even though she still has that innocence of a child, she still has that protectiveness, that older sister protectiveness, which is, again, it's just such a fascinating shade to play. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to talk about the tech Crosshair, but I know that's not yet. So I yield the floor.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, that is a sweet moment. I mean, Shannon makes a great point. She is their kind of older sister, even though she hasn't been out there and experienced the missions they have that hardened them. She's still their older sister and almost, is always there trying to protect them and save them in a way. So is there a responsibility she maybe feels because she was there at their creation, but also all of this happening here? What's your view on it, as an animation exec and as a person who's steeped in animation? What stood out for you during this opening?
Well, yeah, I mean, so just first off, just from a technical standpoint, and you guys have already all nailed it, but giant destruction, explosions, underwater rescues, like none of this is easy in animation. And they make it look cheap. And they make it look so good that, as everybody's saying, you almost forget that you're watching an animated show. Like, it's so amazing. The action feels so real. The weight of everything feels so real. Like, it's just a level of quality of animation that is astounding every week, and they really just blew it all out as they blew out all of Camino. One thing that I thought of when, because I noticed the same thing that Shannon, as Shannon and Laura said about that clone that came up at the end, who kind of had that reservation in his voice when he said that Camino had been destroyed. And what I realized is, early on in like the first episode, Moff Tarkin kind of says that clones are expensive. And we were all like, aha, that's why they got rid of the clones and went with the stormtroopers, because they're expensive. But what we've seen throughout this season, that is not what it is. The clones were great soldiers because they really cared and believed in what they were doing. And the Empire doesn't give you anything to believe in. The Empire just wants you to follow orders, which is why Crosshair is completely on board with that. But we're seeing just clone after clone after clone in these last chunks of episodes really having a problem. And you realize that Camino made soldiers that were such good, true, everything we want in a soldier, and that they're having a really hard time with the direction the Empire's going. And I think that that's going to be something when we catch up with whatever it is that Rex is doing and all these other pieces in season 2. I think that's a story that is going to continue to be told about why clones just don't cut it in the Empire. And I thought that was lovely. Omega rescuing Crosshair without even questioning it. amazing. The rescue, amazing. Kind of all of this scene giving me Abyss vibes. Like anytime that there's underwater flooding, like doors shutting, like I'm always like, it's like the Abyss. It's a James Cameron moment. And then, like I do, the moment that Omega was watching all of those clone pods go down, I really kind of had that big sister moment that you guys were talking about with Crosshair. I had it there. Like she feels such a responsibility to all of these clones because she was there in such a different capacity. And like I said, the knowledge that she has, what she learned from Nala Se, like I think that just makes her feel even more responsible and protective of all of them. And that moment when they're all like walking along the tube and Omega just looks back at Crosshair and doesn't say anything. Again, I love that they don't go for the younger kind of like her going up and being like, hey buddy, I love you even if you didn't like they didn't go for words. They went for acting. And in CG animation, that's always a risk because is the animation going to be expressive enough without the voiceover actor saying something? And they've done such a good job in this episode that her just kind of looking back says more than any words could say. And then, because Hunter just walks off and he's like, look, you want to stay here and die, you do you. Yeah. And they all walk off and you see. And what I really do love about this whole Crosshair Omega thing in this episode is just the idea that like Crosshair, I think, has two issues with Omega. One of them is he is just jealous that his brothers chose her over him. Like, I think there is a real sense of jealousy. She is the replacement of him on the team. But I think also he blames her for sort of infecting them with her sort of ideology of like just helping people and doing what's right because he doesn't think that's what they should be doing.
Right. Well, that happens. That happens in groups. The Beatles. Anyway, all right, so but what about circling back, Mike, to what we were talking about at the beginning of this episode when we were pushing back on each other here? You have Hunter trying to tell him, hey, the Empire is shooting on us. They're doing all these things. Why aren't you seeing this? And Crosshair refusing to budge. Is this about him being stubborn, or has he just really made his choice and he really thinks Hunter and the Bad Batch are completely off on this?
I think he is being stubborn for sure. He's a stubborn dude. But I think, this is where I think that if you take starting with them in the training room in part one, and then this scene, and then the next scene, it's like Laura was saying how we keep coming back to this conversation between the two of them, but you don't get bored. It's because what they're doing is this is just one long conversation. They just took the conversation, the debate that Hunter and Crosshair are having, and they're interspersing it through, oh shit, we can't talk right now. We have to stop. We're about to die. But then as soon as we're not about to die, we pick up the conversation. And this debate is really Hunter kind of saying over and over again, like, this Empire isn't worth it. Like, they are not the people to follow. Like, we're making our own choice. We're doing what's right. And Crosshair is like, the Republic is dead. Like, these are the winners. This is the right side. They're going to do what they're going to do. Yeah. This is where we belong. And we can do a lot of, in his mind, good, or we can be very helpful to these people, and that is what a good soldier is. A good soldier is helpful. And this is the winning side. And if you come over here with me, we can run across the galaxy and do all kinds of shit and be great soldiers.
It's working on so many levels, isn't it, Mike? I mean, like, we'll get deeper later on with all of us about it when this whole thing ends, but like, it feels very familiar, or it feels very relevant to conversations that are happening now. We are the elite. We are the ones who are, we can, let them, die. We are going to be, it's better if we rule. Like, that's all of this is happening, and we're seeing it play out in our real worlds. We're seeing it play out in our real lives. This idea of separation, this idea of othering the other side. I'm sure I know I've been guilty of it at times as well. So you're seeing it play out here in a real subtle way throughout this series, and certainly through this last episode, which I appreciated. And they end up, let's keep going. They end up back in the same room here that they had on Camino, their barracks after their missions. At least the smell is gone. Hunter and Crosshair battle over following orders and allegiance again, as we were talking about here. We are back to the philosophical battles from the first episode, is what I wrote here. Crosshair says Hunter's leadership is going to lead to the death of the Bad Batch. So it's his first episode. Same thing was being said. Omega just then notices that they landed on the underwater tunnel from the last episode. Omega tells them they can use it to get back to the Marauder. Crosshair asks if Omega is calling the shots now, taking his shot just like he did in the first couple episodes. And Hunter asks him if he has a better idea. And when he says nothing, Hunter walks past him and does the shoulder shove, which I appreciate. Tech opens a hole into the tunnel, and the Bad Batch head on down the tunnel. Crosshair sees a crack in one of the windows, wants to head back. Wrecker asks if he's done complaining. Let's keep going. Crosshair makes a weak attempt at a shot by asking what Wrecker has on his tiny little mind, and Wrecker doesn't take the bait. He just says they're all in this shit because of you, because of Crosshair, and that they would have taken it back if he'd even tried to reach out to them. Interesting point. I love that Wrecker didn't take the bait. It was very worked from his heart in that moment. Tech stops the back and forth between them and tells Wrecker to let it go because Crosshair has always been severe and unyielding. Crosshair says, "Why are you defending him?" Tech says, "I'm not defending you, son. I'm telling you that I understand you. I'm not defending you." There's a difference. Omega notices how unsafe the tunnel is, and just as they begin to walk, a massive sea creature rolls up on them, as Michael said, a la Jaws 3. Holy shit! AZ flies on ahead and is working on turning the tunnel's power on as the creature bites down on the tunnel. He is electrocuted and swims away. Just then, a platform appears and stops, and they land on it with AZ making a funny observation about how he's completed his mission. They end up in Alice's lab, and Tech tells Crosshair that Omega is older than all of them. And Crosshair, which is the first time Crosshair has even heard that, they look out and see the rest of the tunnel is gone, and that was their only means back to the Marauder. Shannon, a lot here, as you mentioned, wanting to talk about this interaction between them here about Crosshair, but also Crosshair getting the reveal that Omega is older than him. So it probably digs at him even more now.
Yeah, the thing with Wrecker, how you said like him not taking the bait. I'm trying to think because they're a very supportive group. There's not even really a lot of ball. I think if there is ball busting, it's coming from Wrecker, and it's all just in good nature. It's just fun. Like, oh, remember when we did that? Yeah. You get the sense that he is just a big softy.
Yeah.
I mean, did he understand that it was an insult? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact is, like, we're not going to get into this right now. Yeah. But we would have taken you back. I mean, I feel like he's the first one to say it. Like, we would have taken you back. Yeah. Like, we wanted you back. And Tex calling him severe and unyielding. And him saying, I mean, I wrote this one down. Understanding you does not mean I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as sick a burn as you're going to get from Tech. It's all very logical. And then, you know, as you guys were talking about before, you know, the conversation stops because we get a moment from the Lost World with the glass cracking. And
nice reference.
And then it's you know, it's a great Star Wars monster moments of, are they going to be able to do this? AZ, who I think is the MVP of this episode, one of his many save the day moments. Yes, everything was great.
Yeah. Michael, what do you think about all this? The animation here was stellar as well, but also the interaction of these characters, the furthering of this relationship, the having Wrecker weigh in on this, and then having Tech weigh in right after Wrecker on how to deal with Crosshair. This is an interesting conversation that they're all having while everything is falling apart on them.
Yeah, and I mean, I loved going back to the barracks. I think going back to this place where they were all a group together. Like when they were all, the last time they were all there, they were a unit, and all of them coming back to this place where they're so far apart now. You know, Crosshair even look, you know, like when Wrecker is like talking about, oh, look, all of our marks from our missions, and Crosshair is just like, all those missions together, and you threw it away. Again, he thinks they just ditched. I mean, he's just super upset about it. And like Hunter says, we made a choice. And, you know, again, Crosshair here just kind of hitting those same beats. He's like, soldiers follow orders. And Hunter's like, blind allegiance makes you a pawn. A real leader protects his squad, which, like you said, is when he's like, well, you did a great job. Like, you've killed your squad. Yeah. And again, Omega just comes right in. She's the one with the plan. And this team is going to follow Omega because she has proven time and time again that she's capable. And Crosshair is like, you know, oh, she's calling the shots now. You're listening to a kid. But we do know, and he's about to find out that, like, technically she's not really a kid. You know, like she knows a lot more than they think she does, and she's a lot more than she appears to be. And yeah, look, I thought the Wrecker moment was just the D. Bradley Baker's performance when he says, "You didn't try to come back, we would have taken you." The hurt and the betrayal he has, like, it's so sad. Because all of these guys clearly love each other so much. Like, despite all the shit and all the explosions, like, everyone is it's a bunch of hurt feelings. This is a bunch of dudes who can kill anybody with like a bare hand, and they've all just got a whole lot of hurt feelings. And then things start to get a little talky. So bring in that Star Wars sea monster. I love a good Star Wars. A Star Wars monster is like, you're like, yep, here it comes, bring it on. And yeah, AZ brings the heat. Totally Jurassic Park Lost World vibes. Like again, like the action sequences here. It was such an interesting episode because you would have these. Literally, you would just go from very emotional scene where we're debating the ideology of being a soldier to now we have to get out of this crazy fucking situation. Now let's have a little bit of a nice little moment. Now let's get out of this fucking situation. And like getting out of Kamino is fucking a journey. Like it is a journey.
And the way they paid off the underwater tunnels by having it be the central reason they can get out of this was really great. I thought that was not, it didn't feel shoved in or forced in or convenient. To me, it felt organically correct in the flow of these two episodes. And it really worked out coming back to it. Yeah, Laura, I mean, you've met enough men. We're very emotionally stunted. And so you're watching these guys having these interactions. And of course, Omega has to be the one that's like, come on already. She sees the good in all of them trying to figure this out. But what do you think about all of this that's happening? Crosshair, the interaction with Tech and Wrecker, and then also everything falling apart in AZ. Did you sense that AZ was maybe the one that was going to be sacrificed? Did you start to sense that his life was in danger?
I should have, because I have in my notes that AZ ends up kind of becoming the Jedi General of the Bad Batch by having to be the one that's slicing open holes in all the doors and ceilings and stuff. I was like, well, we had to get that somewhere. We can't have a lightsaber anymore, so we got to figure out a different way.
Great point.
But going back to the barracks, I think was a really great move in this final episode, and where it ends where it started. I think it was a really beautiful way to bring it back around. The conversation that they have there is really cool. I love this. They're both making good points.
Yeah.
Nora Hunter's like, blind allegiance makes you a pawn, and a real leader protects his squad. And Crosshair is just like, well, look what that's gotten you. We're at the bottom of the ocean, so good job. And it's just the way that they're sort of continuing this conversation throughout. But then even at the end, by the end of the episode, it still doesn't feel like it's over, Like even that conversation hasn't fully ended yet. I did have, as much as I loved the tunnel scene, because I really did, and I loved even the way that like the glass was cracking, sounds like the same effect that they used in the Lost World. It's the same sound, it's the same movement. The way that was even cracking, it just looked and sounded great. I thought it was really cool, and yes, it immediately there's even a shot of like looking up at Omega from below, where her hand is like on the glass, a la Julianne Moore in The Lost World. It was just very perfect, influence very clear there, and I really appreciated that because I love Jurassic Park. So that was I thought really, really cool. The tech line of Crosshair being severe and unyielding was amazing, but he says, it's in your nature. It's in his nature. You can't change that. Not even he can change that. And that was, I think, kind of the moment where I was just like, maybe I was right. Like, maybe he's not going to make it out of here because he's not going to change. Tech just said it out loud. I mean, they all have emotions and all the feelings and stuff in this episode. And this is the closest we're going to get to Tech. Yeah. Like he doesn't have feelings. He's just very logical all the time. And the moment that it does happen at some point in season 2 or 3 or whatever, where we actually do get real emotion out of Tech, it's going to really punch you in the gut, and it's going to really hurt, but it's going to be really sweet. But I love that we still have him here to fulfill that C-3PO role. Somebody needs to come in and fulfill that role with this group of people, and it's always going to be Tech.
It's a great point. And, Laura, some of us have inhibitor chips in our own heads that make us act certain ways in certain moments because of certain things that trigger us. So I like that kind of thing works as you're hearing Tech say what he says about Crosshair. He is severe and unyielding, but this is just who he is. This is how he's built, and accepting people for how they're built. It's not easy always, but it might help you in the conversation for sure. What do you smile at, Mike? Anyway, we cut to the Marauders sitting there ominously on a platform as Kamino burns in the background. Love this shot, Mike. I paused it when I was watching it today just to enjoy the shot for like 5 minutes, just to savor it. Such a beautiful shot. AZ's battery cells are depleting. Oh no, I have it here. Crosshair once again calls out, you gonna put the kid in charge, man? Hunter counters that the kid saved his life, and Crosshair, of all people, says Hunter takes things too personally. He literally started this finale by complaining to Hunter that he never came back for him. Who's the one taking it personally? Crosshair. Right. Hunter counters that the Empire destroyed the whole city. Crosshair says the Empire did what needed to be done. Then they get into this discussion of the Empire versus Republic, and Hunter tells him not to fool yourself. You'll always just be a number to them. This line, I'm going to come back to this line later on. Hunter walks off and rubs his head. Omega sits next to him, just like she did when they were in the holding cell in the first episode or the second episode. Can't remember what episode that was. Omega says she was alone until the Bad Batch were created. He tells her, Crosshair does, being a clone doesn't make you one of them. Omega says, I wanted to believe it was the inhibitor chip, but I was wrong. And then she walks away. The Bad Batch is planning what to do next, and they're going to go out in the water, but they're worried about falling debris. Crosshair says AZ can help them by guiding them through the water, but AZ is on his reserve power. So Crosshair, maybe with that interaction with Omega changing his mind a little bit. AZ is doing good when a piece of debris hits him at Omega's canister when they're out there in the water moving everything forward. They fall to the seabed. AZ gets out of it, gets her out, and now they're headed up, but AZ runs out of power and says he has completed his objective. And Omega jumps out, goes after AZ because of course she does. Hunter wants to go in after them, and Crosshair pops up with a rifle. What a switch. We're thinking, what's this all about? And then he shoots a line to AZ and pulls both him and Omega up after. And then after they arrive, he turns, Crosshair does, to see the whole Bad Batch had their weapons out, trained on Crosshair in case he was actually going to shoot Hunter. Tech says he has a beat on the Marauder and they should start paddling. So, Mikey, a lot here, a lot to go explore here. What did you think about all of this here in this section of the episode?
The scene where Crosshair and Omega are sitting there when she goes over and sits next to him, really, I love, she's the disappointed older sister. Like, it was such an interesting switch. Like, when she sits down and she's like, I really thought that you were the way you are because of the chip. I wanted to believe it was the inhibitor chip that made you like that, but I was wrong. And it's just sort of this weird, she's disappointed in him, but she still loves him. It's like, I love you, but I'm disappointed in you. It's such a weird... it's such a weird sort of sad moment, but I really, really dug it. And also, like, I do love that, again, Omega to the rescue, coming, helping to come up with the plan for everything, and Crosshair just like dogging on her all the way, but then coming around and kind of like, once the plan is getting put together, the way that he does step in and sort of add to the plan. I think it was like this really nice, it's like, he's not going to do a full turn, he's not going to go full redemption, but once the plan is in motion and they're having trouble, he does come in with that extra bit of information that helps bring the plan together. The whole medical capsule escape, super intense, very upsetting to me. I was getting massive claustrophobia. It freaked me out. I was with Wrecker, or I was with Tech when Wrecker was like, I can't see anything, and Tech was like, it's probably for the best. Like, I was like, yeah, this is bad. And yeah, look, you knew that AZ's battery was going to go down. Like, that was a given. You knew it was going to happen. Yeah. Omega going back, of course, like, once she did it, you're like, of course she does, but still, like, that's a big, the whole relationship with droids and how much we care about droids and different people having different opinions on droids, but Omega is always going to care for anybody. And then I think my favorite part of the episode was probably, that Hunter's like, I'm going to go get Omega, I'm do whatever, and then you turn and that Crosshair just has the gun, and you really don't know. Because honestly, within Crosshair's realm of what he thinks is right or not, like that's dumb, that's a bad move, she doesn't matter, like what all the reasons he could have, but then for him to like make that move and actually help them and save them and rescue them, like it's such a great moment. And it's enhanced by him turning around and seeing that every one of his brothers has their guns trained on him. Like, I think it's the moment that he realizes how much Omega really... I mean, he understood it. He was jealous of Omega. Right. Like I said, I think he's probably mad because he thinks Omega is infecting them with her ideas that are not the right soldier ideas. But in that moment, he's like, they would die for her.
Yeah.
Like they are so invested in it. And then him just tossing his gun to Wrecker. Like he's definitely like I'm not fighting this fight anymore. For the moment, I'm done.
Yeah.
It was really, really great.
Yeah, Laura, what stood out for you from this section of the show? As Michael pointed out, I mean, the throwing of the rifle to Wrecker, it wasn't throwing it to him to kind of give up. It was throwing it to him to be like, yeah, I wasn't going to do it. Here, take it. I'm going to chill out on my own. What do you think about all of this? And did you have a moment there where you thought he might be pointing the weapon at Hunter? Because he could easily just threaten Hunter and make the Bad Batch do what he wanted them to do. He just took out 4 troopers with 1 shot, for God's sakes. He could probably disable the Bad Batch if he wanted to with the right shot. What did you think about all this whole section here?
Well, for sure. I mean, I didn't see it coming. Somebody in the chat, the Arliss123, I think, said it's a great misdirect, and it totally was. I mean, it worked so well.
Yeah.
In this scene, and I love that we got that character moment with Crosshair. But I think the thing that stuck out to me most in this whole section is all the stuff that we got with AZ, and it's not even just this like emotional climax of the episode. We had all these great moments of humor with AZ in this. I mean, at one point he's like, "You all survived. This outcome is satisfactory," and he says everything so optimistically and so matter of fact. And even like when his battery's dying, he's like, "I apologize for this inconvenience." It's like, dude, it's fine. Like it's okay. I promise. So, even Omega at one point, she's like, this plan that we're about to enact is going to be dangerous. And he tells her like that your safety is my primary mission objective. And it's just so crazy to me that this droid existed on Camino for this whole time while the Empire was taking over and like hid and was never wiped and never got like reset so that he didn't continue to hold what seems to be like an emotional sort of attachment to Omega. I mean, I really hope that he is a sustainable character, I think, into this, the future seasons of the show, because he's already proven just in this one episode that he's very much a hero. He's going to go down in history with R2 and BB-8, at least in my mind, that he's just a good little boy. And I love that we got this with him. Mm-hmm. I will say the first time I watched this episode, I was like a little bit angry that he ended up surviving, because I think that this would have been like a real great way to emotionally end this episode. Because we kind of got, it was like a K2 Rogue One moment almost, even down to the part where his voice starts to deepen and sort of like die as he's delivering his last line of, she's like, "Don't give up, we're almost there." And he says, "Your path is clear." And he says it so clearly and just so perfectly. And then like, "I've completed my objective." It was just great. And then he sinks. And in that sort of moment when Omega goes after him, I was just like, oh my God, like this is like the moment that Ezra Bridger wanted in Rebels, when he wanted to go save Kanan, but that would have made Kanan's mission fail. It would have just completely, made that sacrifice totally, it would have been in vain. Like none of it would have been worth it. And you could have like completely compromised this entire thing, that in all the good things that AZ did for you. So I was a little bit annoyed at that at first. Going back and watching it again and getting everything that we got out of AZ, I am glad that he, I assume, survives and joins them in season 2, and him and Gonki are going to be best friends, and they're going to go pick up Clink, and they're all going to be best friends, and it's going to be great. But yeah.
It's going to be great. I was just going to say that, Laura. Like, she's accumulating a little droid family of her own there, and they're going to go and get Clink, and that'll just complete the set completely. So that's a great point you bring that up. Shannon, sorry I didn't go to you first. I know I should have gone to you first, but what did you think about this whole section here and everything that was happening? And, of course, the back and forth and the kind of aliens moment with Hicks and Hudson there about who's in charge and all of that. What'd you think?
I mean, I love a good escape scene. And even though Crosshair was being helpful, because he was right, AZ could do it, but he was very dismissive, like, let the droid can do it. Like he's so reptilian, he's just so icky whenever he suggests stuff. And when AZ ultimately does make that sacrifice moment. I mean, it was straight out of Big Hero 6. I mean, it was Baymax. Like, are you satisfied with your service? I mean, it was what? Rip the heart out. Yeah. And we got another really good music cue. when Omega blows her pod, because that's like her theme comes in, and it's that same. It's what they did in the episode before with the Bad Batch theme. It was just sort of this ultra triumphant, like she's made this choice to save her friend. It was all really great, and there was definitely that moment. Like I agree with you guys when Crosshair picked up the rifle, that it's like, oh, is this happening? And the fact that he did save them, it was like, okay. Maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but them coming out of the water in those capsules, I mean, it blew my mind how photorealistic that looked. I just was like going insane in my mind about how much the animation in this show has just gone next level and should inspire, hopefully, more shows to look like this and feel like this and go even further with the animation, because it was stellar. Hey, why don't you swing some of that animation over to some of my sports games? I'd be very happy to see that in my sports games that I play on my PS5, for God's sakes. I like a couple of comments here before we move on. David Cooper, oh my God, Omega pulling I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Hadn't even seen that one coming, which is a great point. Someone saying, I don't know. Oh, it says Randall MXD said, I don't know. Those 1A500s didn't hold as much as the new 4680s do. And this is my favorite one from CNC. It's almost poetic. His brothers couldn't get through to Crosshair, but his sister did a little bit there.
Oh, I like that. I really like that.
All right, so let's move on to the last section here of the show. They arrive at the platform after they start paddling. It is morning by the time they get there, and Omega is looking at the burning city and is once again overcome and sad by what she's seeing. She's the one delivering these unspoken eulogies to that city and to her time there. And I think it's really powerful, as Michael pointed out, the way they're able to express that on her face. Pretty incredible. Tech says they got to go before the Empire scouts show up. Wrecker asks if Crosshair is coming with them. He says he made his decision. This doesn't change anything. Hunter says to him they don't have to be enemies, and Crosshair turns away. Omega lingers on the platform, then goes past Crosshair, then stops, turns around, and thanks Crosshair for saving AZ. Crosshair, of course, says, well, we're even now. Omega says he is still their brother and her brother, too. And they take off, leaving Crosshair on the platform. We cut to a forest planet. I don't think it's Endor, but a planet of the forest. Nala Se arrives and is met by an Empire scientist, I would imagine, who says the Empire has big plans for her. Shannon, I'll go to you since I should have gone to you first in the last section. What do you think about the way this whole thing ended? We don't get that kind of, maybe I should walk that back a little bit, that Disney ending necessarily. It's more of a, we're still your brothers. We're still here when you need us. But Crosshair, very determined to do what he thinks is right, stays on that platform. And then the Nala Se stuff. Are we connecting up Mandalorian? Are we connecting up Rise of Skywalker? What do you think's happening here?
Well, one, poor sweet Wrecker, like, are you going to come with us?
Yeah.
Like, he just...
So true.
Just true. No subtlety to poor Wrecker. And you can tell, like, he wants him to. Like, he's like, we can fix this. Like, we can be a family again. And the moment that Omega does go back, and again, just that slithery reptilian Crosshair response, consider us even. And as soon as they went to that planet, it was like, okay, so we know Nala Se is going to be functioning in some capacity as a scientist for the Empire. But when that other scientist comes out, she's wearing the same outfit as Dr. Pershing from The Mandalorian.
Yes, she is.
Yes, that was a great way. Again, I feel like the Bad Batch are so disconnected from that. I mean, unless in a future season, whether Omega wants to go rescue Nala Se, I'm like, they're so far away from it. But I did like the fact that, like, okay, we are connecting this over to the new trilogy.
Yeah, Mike, it's what do you think of this ending here? But also Shannon brings up an interesting point. I mean, she is wearing the kind of same outfit, same colors, and this is 30 years, I think, chronologically before The Mandalorian. So does this lend more credence to the theory that a lot of people have that Baby Yoda Grogu is a clone? What do you think about this whole ending and that possibility?
I like that you call him Grogu. Oh, let's go goo.
It's on the goo.
Goo. Yeah, for sure.
So put it on my spaghetti. Grow goo. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll get to the Nalase and cloning of all in a minute. First of all, I mean, very rarely does it not rain on Camino. I think there's one arc. There's one arc where like with that old kind of janky clone who dies protecting Camino and like that. And I think at the end of that one, it's like not raining, but like that moment where they kind of come up and the sun is rising up on the ruins of Camino. Like it really is. And I do think that as they were mapping out where they were going for season 1 and season 2, like, and this does get into the Nalase of it a little bit, like this series is all about why cloning ended and how cloning came over here. And the destruction of Camino is a very important moment now in Star Wars history. And this is the moment. And we were there and we lived through this like horrible destruction. And like, so it's a very personal thing to us because we lived through it through the clones. Crosshair, I'm so fascinated by him as a character. And I think I love him more and more and more. And I think I will continue to love him more and more. Consider us even. Like this is basically his way of saying thank you for saving my life. Like it was you saved my life. I am not going to say thank you because I am a stubborn ass motherfucker, but I saved you and AZ, and so now we're even. And I think it's a weird sort of grudging respect for her. Like it's like he just complained about the kid giving the orders through the entire thing, but they made it out. Like they survived, and he understands that they would not have done that without her. So there's this weird, almost like as they sort of choose their sides, I think he's accepting the fact that she's a part of the team in a way. And additionally, his struggle with, I think, his love for his brothers and him being upset that they won't stay with him, but his refusal to deviate from his own ethos, from what he believes, makes him a super, super complicated character. And then Omega, just the whole, I mean, dude, you're still their brother. You're my brother too. Yeah. Right in the gut. Like, just right in the gut. Like, what a pun. Like, she really is like, she's going to keep that space open for him no matter what. And it's just, it's awesome. Like, I just love this part of this. I love this dynamic of the relationship because it's so interesting, and I have literally no idea where it's going to go. The cloning stuff, we all know where it's going to go because we've seen Rise of Skywalker, and I do really think that they are cloning, you know, from New Hope, when Obi-Wan Kenobi says, your father and I fought in the Clone Wars, and none of us for, you know, years and years and years had any idea what the fuck that meant. Clone Wars, the idea of cloning, these clones have become such a major part of Star Wars. And I do think that when J.J. Abrams and the team at Lucasfilm made the decision they made for Rise of Skywalker, there was that idea of it's all poetry, it all rhymes. Cloning was the thing in the prequels, and we can bring it back here. They just didn't have the runway of storytelling to do it the right way. That's a great point. And so what they are doing now is, through Mandalore, we all love Grogu. We all love Baby Yoda more than anything in the world. We will all die for him. And his story is tied intrinsically to cloning and eventually what happens to Palpatine. Now we're taking the story of the clones, and by having that Imperial officer come out with her Dr. Pershing outfit and Nala Se being under control of the Empire, they are taking everything we love about clones and just building those building blocks so that they're going to link it all up, so that looking back on this, and we've said this before, but 30 years from now, when you go back and watch all these movies, Rise of Skywalker is not going to seem like it comes out of left field.
Oh, that's a great point.
God, I hope so.
Oh, maybe that's a fair point. That's a fair point. All right, Laura, what did you think about this ending? And is there something to be said about Crosshair being consistent with his point of view? He's not mean or evil, or he's not like Vader, you know what I'm saying, or the Emperor. He is. I'm getting I don't know, something happened. I'm getting
my headphones. Can you hear me? Okay. My headphones messed up.
Oh, okay.
Just keep talking. You sound great.
Turn me down a little bit, maybe. But with this, do you think that there's a consistency in philosophy that'll keep us cheering for him, so that there's a possibility that if you do change his mind, he'll be just as adamant for you as he was adamantly against you, because he's not coming from a place of evil. He's coming from a place of logic in a way of why he's doing the things that he's doing.
Well, I was thinking about how he's like, I have made my decisions. And
yeah, you're going to have to turn it up, Mike. Sorry, because Laura's getting a reverb. Sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
No, and I can hear it on my end too. But he went in and executed a whole bunch of rebels, and he watched the Empire destroy an entire city, and he saw what they were doing on Ryloth. And I'm like, where's this guy going to draw the line? I mean, like, the morality of any of it isn't bothering him. So that's my sort of question of, if he is sticking to his guns of sticking to the Empire, I don't think there's anything that the Empire can do that's going to make him be like, oh, you know what? You crossed the line. I'm going to go back to the Bad Batch laters. I think that, like, there's a chance maybe that if I assume we're going to stick with this scientist who was wearing the same sort of uniform as Dr. Pershing, which I remember people freaking out about Dr. Pershing and seeing that emblem and being like, oh my God, it's like something from Camino. Like, you see the clones in Attack of the Clones, like they have the little patch on. You see it in the Clone Wars a few times too. And I kind of didn't really think anything of it. And then when we saw it again, I kind of still didn't think anything of it. I'm just like, yeah, they're cloning. Duh. Like, but I almost wonder, like, they're probably going to go at some point, I would think, to this planet to try and rescue Nala Se. Clearly, Nala Se has some sort of attachment to Omega.
Yeah,
Omega probably has some kind of attachment to her. They're going to find out somehow that she's there and maybe go try and save her. Is that maybe where, like, a point where Crosshair would find out that they're doing more cloning experiments after he probably will see the Empire do more decommissioning of their current clones? Is that potentially where he may draw a line? Is that potentially where we maybe bring Crosshair back into the fold, because he's going to be like, you know what, you can't keep doing this cloning thing, man. This is fucked up. Like, I wonder a little bit if that's maybe going to be where it goes. But yeah, bringing this scientist in, I'm excited to see where they bring her next season. Yeah. Helen Sadler's the name of the voice actress who plays her, and she's not new to Star Wars voice acting. She's voiced Rey, she's voiced Jyn Erso in different various animated projects and things for Lego and things in video games. So I think it's safe to say that she'll be back in season 2. I almost thought it was she looked a little bit like Arinda Price from Star Wars Rebels at first, and I was like, no, there ain't no way. She would be like really young, I think, in this period. But yeah, I think she's going to be one to watch next season. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of this medical officer that showed up at the very end of this episode.
Yeah, definitely. I like your points about Crosshair. I just want to hear him say that. You motherfuckers have gone too far. I just want to see that kind
This is where I draw the line.
This is too far. What is that? Is that the Emperor? What the hell is that? Anyway, somebody said earlier that Grogu was there at the temple, so maybe he's not. Is it? I think that's still up for debate, isn't it? Or am I wrong on this? Has it been settled?
Well, they said he was 50 years old.
Okay.
Phantom Menace, I believe, takes place 35 years before episode 4.
Okay. He's the same age as Anakin.
All right.
Wait. No, Grogu is rescued from the temple at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ahsoka says it in The Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah, we know, and there's a lot of theories on who it is that rescues him. We don't know his full story, but we do know he was at the temple and somebody rescued him and scurried him away. So he's off on his journey while all this is going on too.
Okay. But could he still be could he possibly be a clone? We don't know, right? All right. Sorry, Mikey. All right.
Oh, are you going for the whiteboard?
No response. Mike, you're supposed to respond. All right, never mind.
We are having technical difficulties.
We are. Sadly, is anything. But yeah, that's the end of the finale. There, we've talked about our feelings on it, and maybe I'll go through the private chat with Michael on my questions. But let's get to some of your Streamlabs that have come through here as we wrap up here. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and please hit a like as we're wrapping up here. We had over 250 of you all watching us live, so please hit a like button on this episode. It would help us a lot overall in the YouTube, what do they call it? Algorithm. There you go. All right. Garth Harkness McMurray says, Nala Se is brought to an Imperial facility. The woman is wearing a uniform, the same design and arm patch as Pershing in The Mandalorian. We talked about that. I think they need Nala Se to help with cloning work on people with high midichlorian counts like Palpatine and Grogu. All right. Maybe. Maybe. Also says Omega being older than the Bad Batch. I wonder how old she is and if she knew Boba Fett, who was originally named Alpha and grew up there too. I would like in the book of Boba Fett for a grown-up Omega to appear, and the episode could be titled The Alpha and the Omega. What did you guys do? Would that work?
I'm into it. Now that I can hear again.
Yay! Welcome back.
Yay!
I like this idea too. The idea of like a grown-up Omega showing up in a future episode of something live action. I would just love to see, what she's gonna look like, what's the uniform gonna look like. But I'm more curious about next season and whether or not they're finally gonna get her some armor. Because I still think it's weird that this vulnerable person who has bounty on her is just walking around with her face out in the open. I'm like, give her a helmet at least, please.
See, I wonder at the end, like, and sorry for jumping ahead, but like, I wonder in between season 1 and season 2 if we're going to get within the story a little bit of a time jump. If we're going to see Omega get a little bigger.
What I thought too.
That's possible.
Yeah,
Certainly
I wondered
possible.
about that.
What do you think, Mike?
I'm curious. I think that there's going to be the three pieces, like the Nala Se story and what she's doing with the Empire, the Bad Batch still finding their place, because I still don't, the Sid is still out there. They're still kind of working with Sid, and I think that's going to be a tie to some of the underworld stuff that we're going to get into. And then there's whatever's going on with Rex, which I think, given the fact that they've clearly set up that a lot of the clones that we've seen are maybe not as comfortable with what the Empire is doing, I think that's where Rex is going to focus a lot of his attention, is we need to get these guys out, we need to get that. And I think that you're going to, even though the Clone Wars finale at the end of season 7 was the end very, very specifically of the Clone Wars, we still have all these clone troopers, and I think the question of what happened to them, how did this transition happen, how did this all go down, it's going to be a lot more interesting and involved than we previously thought it was. And I think the Bad Batch being on one side of this, when I'm assuming eventually, either with Sid or without her, they're going to sort of hopefully team up with Rex. And to Laura's point, that may really involve, as they are very tied to the fact that Camino has lost what happened with cloning, dealing with whatever the Empire is trying to do, and Nala Se. So I think all of these things are like fertile ground. Will there be a time jump? Possibly, but I think probably not a huge time jump.
Okay, fair. Level 2 says, my take on Crosshair is that he is Peacemaker from Suicide Squad. Yeah, all right. That could be possible as well for those of you who've seen the movie. All right. Kim Kelton says, always awesome analysis. Great show. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate that. Lou Hupe Fan says, no questions for me, just support for the 4 years. Love the conversation you're having about this. Please be here for the book of Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah.
Plan to.
God, yes.
Definitely.
I'm inviting myself back.
Oh, trust me, Laura. You are always welcome, Laura. CNC says, great job this season. 16 episode recaps is a lot more than the 8 episodes of Mandalorian, but you made it. Love the discussion. Thank you. And Randall MXD says, I have not seen the show as I don't have Disney Plus, but thinking it's time to get it for a month thanks to this show. Oh, well.
Aw.
Yeah, there you go. You
just ignored Johnny's spoiler warnings, didn't you? You just dove right in. It's cool.
People do that. It's really strange. It happens on the Cinephiles all the time. They'll listen
I'm
to
into
us,
it.
then watch the movie. It's very strange.
I'm into it.
Yeah. Demon Lord Illidan says, I think the reason Wrecker didn't take the bait from Crosshair was that they were, quote, on mission. Maybe. Okay. Maybe. Yeah, it's possible. And this is, I like this, Arturo Zamorano. I love the Bad Batch 3000. All right, there you go. All right. All right, well, let's wrap up here. Those are all the Streamlabs Super Chats that we have. Thank you all so much for the support and the love that we got tonight. But let's go around the horn here one last time and ask you guys your opinions about the season overall. Mikey, let's start with you. Season 1 of Bad Batch overall, what you're feeling now after a couple of days since the finale.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much what I said at the beginning, which is I love every one of these episodes. I think there's so much to enjoy. I think the animation is spectacular. I think the character work is spectacular. I really enjoy these characters. I love them touching the different pieces, like Cad Bane showing up, like Harris and Dula. I love that we're kind of putting all the pieces together and filling in the gaps. I think they could probably have done it in maybe a couple fewer episodes or with a little bit more of the streamlining of the story so that we felt like we were moving at a little bit of a quicker pace. I loved everything we got. I just wish that maybe we had made more room so that we could have gotten even more of the big reveals and that stuff. I think that's where I land on it. So it's like, it didn't blow me. I think it's by far the best their animation quality has been, but I think their storytelling hasn't quite reached the levels of the best of Clone Wars or the best of Rebels yet. But I think it will.
Okay. All right. Laura, overall thoughts on this first season of The Bad Batch?
Super impressive. And I think that when you look back at the first season of Rebels and the first season of the Clone Wars, they're nobody's favorites. And I think it's very plausible that this could end up being a favorite season for some people because the storytelling is so good. And the animation just looks fantastic. And clearly they have their A-team working on this show because they're clearly putting money into it. And clearly I think the move is worth it. Overall, the episodes that some people might consider filler might be something like the Ryloth arc. Obviously, I loved that arc because I was all for seeing any Harris and Dula content in any way, shape, or form because I don't think she got enough screen time in Rebels. I think splitting the finale into 2 episodes did absolutely no justice for this show or for the finale. I think that we built great momentum and then we lost it by splitting it into 2. And normally when they split episodes like this into 2, they have aired them both on the same night. And the fact that this was a departure from that, I don't really understand what the justification would have been for that, other than to just stretch it out. So yeah, I would have preferred that part of it be executed differently, but I love that, we got to see a lot of familiar names in the credits in terms of who was, voice acting and who was doing a lot of writing of these stories. And I think that experience that all those people had of working on previous Star Wars project has really paid off. And I'm really grateful to have people like that involved in this show, especially when we know that Dave Filoni is spending more time focusing on live action stuff, and he's credited as the supervising director on this show, sure, but he had much more of a direct involvement with Clone Wars and with Rebels than when he has with this show. And he didn't have that same involvement with Resistance either, and I don't know if that did that show any favors. So I think this team really knocked it out of the park, and I'm really excited to see where they take it next season. I'm just really hoping we don't have to wait too long for it. The idea of having to wait until like May the 4th next year, which is when this show premiered this year. Fingers crossed that it's a little sooner than that, but
agreed.
Yeah. And you make a good point, Lauren, especially when the season opened with, I think, an hour-and-a-half episode where it was all combined.
Oh, that's right.
So I mean, having the season finale split into 2 half-an-hours, they essentially pulled a Hobbit when they should have pulled a Lord of the Rings, and I appreciate that. Shannon, what did you think about this first season of The Bad Batch here, my man?
I thought this was a very successful first season. I think they're probably learning some lessons along the way of this is who we're going to focus on going forward. This is the relationship we really want to focus on going forward. From a technical standpoint, I don't know how you can do better. I mean, like, the animation is gorgeous. Yeah. The performances across the board, from D. Bradley Baker all the way down to the folks that only had a few lines for a few characters. I thought the performances, they knocked it out of the park. And I am super excited to see what they do. I mean, in terms of first seasons, I would put this below Rebels first season and above everything else in terms of Star Wars animation.
Okay. I might agree with you. Yeah, I might agree with you, except that first few episodes of Rebels in that first season. It isn't until the Tower episode that it becomes fantastic. But yeah, I could see that. Absolutely, certainly. I liked this season. I was a little hesitant with the Omega character and blah, 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 because I wanted this to be the Expendables in the Star Wars universe. So I was excited about that, but it ended up being something a little more sweeter, a little more deeper. And for that, I'd certainly appreciate the first season of The Bad Batch. I would love a time jump where we get a teenage Omega, then at that point, I would love to see what adventures they get into at that with that kind of situation. Maybe some more adult themes, some more adult episodes, a little more darkness. Also, I'd like to see some villains that really do terrify us. For all of Rampart and him being there and the destruction of Camino and going after the clones, and even Tarkin and Palpatine, they were there at the beginning, but then they kind of disappear as we're going on a mission of the week type of situation. I want some real ruthless villains coming in to the second season that kind of rivals what we got in Clone Wars, rivals what we got in Rebels. I'd like to see some of that. So hopefully that gets remedied going into the second season. But overall, as Shannon and Mike and Laura have said, this is a damn good first season. Technically incredible, voiceover-wise, phenomenal. And so it just lays a really nice groundwork for what we're looking forward to going into the second season. All right, thank you all so much for joining us live for this season 1 finale spoiler review here from the Geek Buddies on the Outlaw Nation channel. We appreciate it madly. Thank you for the Streamlabs. Thank you for the Super Chats. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MK2, and if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
Hey, you know what? Crosshair is still their brother, and you're all still our buddies. We like you all here. We like you all staying here. And we like to do this stuff for you guys. We have a blast doing it, and here's what you guys can do to help us keep doing what we do. If you have not, take a minute right now and hit that like button right now as I'm saying it. Just roll that little mouse over there, just like click, click. Subscribe to John's Outlaw Nation page. Leave us some comments below. You guys have been great in the chat. We've been seeing what you guys are saying there, but leave some comments on the YouTube page. Let us know what you guys thought of the episode. What do you think is going to happen next season? What do you hope we see in Book of Boba? Do you want to see some connections there? If you're listening to us on Anchor or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us some stars, leave us some comments, helps us go up in the rankings so people can find us. And of course, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, and tell everybody how much fun you are having hanging with the Geek Buddies.
Absolutely. Randall MXD said, screw the spoiler warnings. You all are awesome. Oh, thank you, Randall. Appreciate that. Laura Kelly, again, from the three of us, we thank you massively for being a part of these reviews and for bringing so much appreciated insight, intelligence, and just, stuff for us to consider and think about as we look at all of this. Please tell everybody where they can find you and everything you got going on.
Oh, thank you so much, you guys. This is always so much fun to get to hang out with you guys and chat about all this. And thank you for all the love in the chat. I saw it tonight. I really appreciated everybody. It was great to hang out in a live stream it's been a while, so it feels good. John, I gotta say number 1 first. If you do want to see really ruthless villains, you gotta pick up the High Republic books because they've got truly ruthless villains. Yeah, they're totally awesome. But if you want to come find me on Twitter, come find me @shutup_Laura. That's my handle right down there. I'm also on Instagram at that handle. If you want to follow the other show that I do, it's called Force Toast Star Wars Happy Hour. It's an audio podcast that I do with my friend Alice, where we just drink wine and talk about Star Wars and do recaps and play trivia, and it's a grand old time. So yeah, check that out and stay tuned for the upcoming Star Wars tournament in the Movie Trivia Schmodown.
Ooh.
I will be competing in that as well.
Wow. And at some point, Laura and I are going to bring back Jedi Way. Now that we've put these reviews to bed and a little more time has cleared up, we're going to figure that out for sure. But thank you all so much again for joining us for this review. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new review or episode here from the
Geek Buddies!